Victoria had been keeping a young lover on the side, and he was now demanding official recognition of their relationship. To appease him, she gave him the role I had fought desperately to obtain. She was confident I wouldn't dare to divorce her. At their new drama series press conference, she even made a show of wearing matching couple rings with him. Countless media lenses were trained on me during that live broadcast, waiting to witness my humiliation, but I simply took out the divorce papers with complete composure. Victoria slammed the table in fury. She proceeded to block all my brand endorsements and publicly declared that within a month, I would come crawling back, begging for reconciliation. Yet ironically, on that rainy night, it was she who came racing recklessly through the downpour, standing soaking wet at my doorstep, pleading for reconciliation. The woman who had recently returned home stood blocking the doorway, smirking as she said, "Dear ex-sister-in-law, save your voice. He's tired and can't hear you." When the male lead for Blazing Flame was officially announced, my studio erupted in chaos. What's going on? How did they change the lead without any notice? We cleared 3 months of schedule for this shoot, Hannah. My manager Hannah's face darkened as she dialed the production company's number, only to be brushed off with a few casual excuses. Why don't you let Sincere ask Victoria himself about this? Victoria was the primary investor in Blazing Flame and also my wife. All eyes in the studio suddenly turned to me, their gazes urging me to act. I looked down at the name of the new male lead, and my heart sank. Ethan, the young lover Victoria was rumored to be keeping. Until now, I hadn't taken these rumors too seriously. Throughout our marriage, even though Victoria never truly cared for me, she had never flaunted such scandalous behavior openly. But this time, to pacify her young lover who was demanding recognition, Victoria had handed over the male lead role I had fought so hard to secure, gifting it to him without hesitation. She knew perfectly well how important this role was to me. After 3 unanswered calls, Hannah put a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Go home and talk to her properly. You sacrificed so much to get this role. Don't lose it over pride." But Victoria didn't come home that evening. I sat on the couch waiting from dusk until dawn, only to see her finally return with casual indifference. She gave me a fleeting glance, showing no intention of explaining herself. I finished my last sip of tea and looked up at her, asking why she had changed the lead actor. "Because I felt like it," Victoria replied dismissively. Then, tilting her head, she smiled. "What's wrong? Are you angry?" Victoria always knew exactly how to provoke me with her nonchalance. She came closer, leaning down slightly to look at me, mockery evident in her eyes. "Isn't the great actor Sincere capable of fighting for everything himself? Why would you care about a mere leading role?" The sarcasm in her words was obvious. Victoria had once grabbed my collar and told me, "Sincere, if you just please me, I can elevate you to any position you desire." Now she was demonstrating through her actions just how wrong my initial rejection of her offer had been. In the past, I wouldn't have bothered arguing with Victoria, but this time was different. Blazing Flame meant too much to me. It held all the beautiful memories of that person and me. Remembering Hannah's words, I suppressed my surging emotions and spoke softly. "I spent months preparing for this role." "I know," Victoria cut me off dismissively. My eyebrow twitched as I looked up at her. Victoria lowered her eyes, smiling as she said, "You want this role back. But what if I don't want to give it to you?" The conversation ended unpleasantly. Hannah approached me several times about it, but I just lay on the couch in silence. When I finally spoke, my voice was hoarse. "I'm not being stubborn. Victoria knows how much this means to me. She's doing this deliberately." Hannah's words stopped abruptly. She looked at me for a long while before murmuring, "What kind of marriage is this? Indeed, what kind of marriage was it?" It had always been a transaction. Victoria was the princess of Beijing's elite circles, with status and wealth. Everyone thought I had desperately climbed my way up the social ladder, but no one knew that it was Victoria who had initially promised to love me, word by word. Before I could even agree, the Sincere family had nodded their approval, delivering me to Victoria's side. But gradually, Victoria began to treat me with spite as if holding a grudge. When drunk, she would caress my face, repeatedly questioning, "Sincere, am I really so unworthy of your love? Without me, would your family have their current status? Isn't pleasing me what the Sincere family does best?" She took the most pleasure in looking down at me when I was at my lowest, trying to seduce me with a voice that feigned pity and redemption. Beg me, Sincere. She knew I would never beg, and she was certain I wouldn't dare divorce her for my family's sake. So she continued to humiliate me, watching me lose face in front of everyone. Victoria announced that if I would stand at the entrance of the upcoming banquet with her favorite cake, waiting to escort her home, she would return the role to me. Hannah's face darkened at this. Everyone who's anyone in our circles will be at that banquet in 2 days, making you stand at the entrance. Isn't this just pure humiliation? Even if she's determined to give the position to Ethan, she doesn't need to treat you like this. Hannah urged me to let the role go, but I still agreed. Is this movie really that important to you? She asked. I nodded quietly. Yes, very important. As luck would have it, it rained heavily that day. I stood at the banquet entrance with an umbrella, constantly aware of the eyes on me and the whispered conversations. I heard he's doing this to please Victoria. Why did he put on such airs before? Without status or background, you have to resort to such degrading tactics. How pathetic. I remained silent, watching the rainwater stream down from the umbrella's edge. I waited until midnight before finally understanding what they meant by pathetic. Victoria never showed up to the banquet at all. I was drenched and became the laughingstock of everyone there. My fingers trembled from the cold. Unable to reach Victoria by phone, I received a text from an unknown number. Heard you waited all evening. Sorry about that. Victoria flew to S-City to celebrate my birthday with me. Attached was a photo of an elaborate birthday cake. I stared coldly at the screen for a few seconds, threw away the cake I'd been holding, and turned to leave. Victoria never returned my calls, but she did post briefly on social media. Though it was quickly deleted, people had already captured screenshots. In the dim light of a Ferris wheel, the glass reflection showed 2 figures seemingly kissing. Hannah was furious, calling Victoria inhuman. News travels fast in our circles, and I became everyone's 3-minute joke. Despite all this, I still didn't get the role back. Victoria looked at me, her eyes curving with amusement. Sincere, even if you had shown up, I might not have given you back the role. After all, I never promised I would. Her tone remained characteristically dismissive. A cold shiver ran through my body as I looked up at her with icy eyes. My apparent distress seemed to amuse Victoria even more. She covered her mouth, laughing harder. Sincere, it's been so long since I've seen you like this. The role is settled now, it can't be changed. But I won't let you wait in vain. How about this? She leaned in closer, her voice still laced with laughter. From now on, you can pick any script you want. Victoria, I suddenly interrupted, meeting her gaze for a few seconds before calmly saying, let's get divorced. Victoria's smile froze instantly. She studied me intently, saying, hasn't anyone told you some jokes shouldn't be made? Before finishing her sentence, she raised her hand, her fingertips trailing across my cheek. The project your family is currently negotiating. 1 word from me, and it all turns to dust. As if to prove her point, just as she finished speaking, a message from my family came through. Without looking, I knew it would contain instructions about how to appease Victoria. Victoria lowered her eyes to look at me, her smile returning. When she spoke, her voice was soft but certain. Sincere, you can't leave me. After that day, Victoria seemed to take revenge by showering Ethan with affection. Whatever he wanted, she would give him. Ethan's text messages would frequently arrive. Victoria got me this limited edition watch. I heard it's the model you've always wanted. Want to see? Thanks to you, I would never have met someone as wonderful as Victoria. By the way, don't wait up. I'm taking Victoria to see the fireworks. These messages came from an endless stream of new numbers. I could never block them fast enough. The more Victoria doted on Ethan, the more online comments about me multiplied, spreading like wildfire. Thank heavens, Sincere finally got what he deserved. What's a marriage of convenience compared to true love? Hey, Sincere, when are you going to step aside for our Ethan? As if he'd be willing to divorce. He'd never give up all those benefits. Everyone was convinced I wouldn't dare to divorce her, Victoria included. She snatched my phone, staring at the comments for a few seconds before looking up at me with a smile. So you do care about what people say? Then why can't you just beg me? She leaned in close, her alcohol-laden breath washing over my ear. Sincere, just beg me. Say the things I want to hear. Everything Ethan has, I can give to you too. I looked at her silently. That night when I had mentioned divorce, Victoria hadn't taken it seriously at all. She had been orchestrating this show from behind the scenes all along. She understood better than anyone how damaging public opinion could be for me. Yet she deliberately wanted to watch me lose face, to see me isolated, to force me to beg her. But I wouldn't. I pushed Victoria away. Don't come near me, you're filthy. Victoria froze, her face turning pale. When my family called again, I finally returned home. Opening the door, I found the room full of people, none of them looking pleased. They were clearly unhappy about Ethan's emergence. My father, Neil, began reproachfully. Something as simple as pleasing Victoria, and you can't even do that, right? Have you seen what people are saying online? I laughed coldly and asked, So you're aware of how people are commenting about our family? Neil's face darkened. Regardless, we can't lose this project. You can't make any mistakes with Victoria. I nodded and replied, The project won't be lost, but this will be the last time. Neil's momentary relief vanished as he asked what I meant by the last time. I said, Over these years our family has reaped plenty of benefits. It's time to learn to stand on our own. This project will be my final act of endurance. Once it's done, I'm divorcing Victoria. Before I could finish, Neil's hand struck my face without hesitation. Who do you think you are? Without our family, you'd be nothing today. I turned my head aside, my face stinging with pain, but I ignored it. Instead, I looked back at Neil with cold eyes and finished my last sentence. And after this, Sincere will have nothing more to do with this family. Whatever they said afterward, I neither heard nor cared to hear. The family had raised me all these years. Once the project was complete, we'd be even. After all these muddy years, I could finally see an endpoint. Walking out, I lifted my head to look up at the sky. The sunlight was harsh, making my eyes hurt. After a long while, the sound of a message notification pulled me from my thoughts. News about Grace, the heir to the Shen family, was trending. I stared at her name, suddenly lost in memories. That night, I had a dream. It was a quiet, warm afternoon. I had just finished the last page of a book and waved to a young woman standing in the sunlight. I told her, when I become an actor, I want to play the male lead in this book. The young woman's eyes curved as she asked why. I looked up and told her, I love this story. The leads in it stay together forever. She burst out laughing and said, But we'll stay together outside the story too. I'll watch you become a great actor and play the lead in this book. But later, I was the one who pushed her away. On that rainy day, she gripped her umbrella handle, smiling sardonically. Indeed, I was never meant to be the female lead. I jerked awake, my forehead covered in fine sweat. The pitch-black room felt like a suffocating net wrapped tightly around me, making it hard to breathe. The day the family project was finalized coincided with Victoria's company's new product launch. The event was unusually lively, as rumors spread that Victoria would attend with Ethan. As soon as this news leaked, numerous media outlets rushed in, drawn by the scent of high society scandal. Before I left, Hannah grabbed my sleeve. Do you really have to go? At such a formal event, if Victoria really brings Ethan, she's clearly intent on humiliating you. Going there now is just asking for embarrassment. I nodded. Hannah was about to say more when her expression suddenly turned grim. I looked down at her screen. On the launch event's livestream, Victoria had indeed arrived with Ethan. They stood together, their outfits carefully coordinated in both color and style. The media, eager for drama, zoomed in on their matching couple rings. The media exploded instantly. Comments flooded the livestream. Victoria really brought him. Those couple rings are too much. She must be confident Sincere won't dare to divorce her. How could he divorce the Sincere family? I stopped watching and went straight to find Victoria. As soon as I arrived, numerous eyes turned to me, heavy with anticipation for drama. Ethan smiled and explained, Don't misunderstand. I insisted on getting matching rings with Victoria. I responded with a cold and added, Aren't those the rings Victoria bought for me that I refused? If you like them, keep them. Ethan's face instantly paled. Victoria looked up at me, somewhat surprised, and lowered her voice. So you finally decided to come find me? I nodded. Yes, I do have something to discuss with you. She suddenly smiled and said, Sincere, I told you you couldn't leave me, but coming to beg now. Isn't it a bit late? From the moment Ethan appeared, I was destined to become the laughingstock of the entire city. This was exactly what Victoria wanted to see. Humiliating me was her favorite tactic. Victoria's voice was perfectly pitched to be heard by everyone in the room. As she spoke, the looks directed at me grew increasingly contemptuous. So Sincere really came to beg. I want to see what he'll say. These whispers reached both our ears. Victoria's smile widened as she adjusted her posture, ready to savor the moment, quietly waiting for me to speak. I looked at her calmly and in front of everyone pulled out divorce papers. It's not too late. Just sign here if you have no objections. Then I held out a pen. Victoria looked at me with a smile, but when her eyes fell on the divorce papers, her smile instantly froze. The bustling atmosphere suddenly turned cold. Everyone fell silent. What do you mean? Victoria gritted her teeth. Sincere, you really dare to divorce me? It was rare to see Victoria like this. She stared at the divorce papers for a long while, then laughed bitterly. You don't really think this one project is all your family relies on from the Liu family, do you? I'll give you time to think it over carefully. Sincere, if you take this back now, we can pretend nothing happened. No need to think it over. I looked at her steadily, my voice cold. Just sign. Victoria was certain I wouldn't leave her for my family's sake, and I was certain that someone as concerned with face as she was wouldn't refuse in front of so many people. Whispers began to rise from the crowd. More and more media cameras focused on Victoria. This kind of live drama had everyone on the edge of their seats. Victoria scanned the scene, her expression worsening. She slammed the table, her knuckles white as she gripped the pen. Fine. Sincere, before long, you'll be crawling back to me like a dog. The divorce news instantly went viral. My family arrived even faster than I had expected. Neil raised his hand to strike me, but I caught his wrist and pushed it aside. His face turned pale as he hurled abuse at me, more concerned about offending the Liu family than anything else. Standing on the overpass, surrounded by passing crowds, I coldly watched Neil's meltdown. I told him, instead of wasting time venting at me, you should think about the family's future. I won't be your sacrifice anymore. The impotently furious Neil left. Long after he was gone, I remained standing there. As night fell, I sat on the overpass with several bottles of alcohol, drinking one after another. The sky had completely darkened when it started to rain. The autumn rain was particularly cold, but not a drop touched me. An umbrella appeared silently above my head, held by beautiful fingers, just like years ago. My eyebrow twitched, and I almost choked on my drink. I never thought Grace would want to see me again. Of all the countless reunions I had imagined, I never pictured us sitting quietly under an overpass, drinking together. The rain pattered steadily, and neither of us spoke. Late into the night, when I was half drunk, I heard her say softly, "You're not doing well." My fingers trembled around the bottle. Grace moved closer and asked hoarsely, "Why won't you look at me?" I had pushed her away myself. I shouldn't dare to hope for anything now. But maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe I had missed her too much. Looking at her face, I couldn't bring myself to push her away again. I sat frozen as Grace's lips descended on mine. They were warm. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in Grace's home. The sound of rain continued softly outside, while inside the atmosphere was intimate and indescribable. Soft gasps mingled with the sound of rain. I stared intently at the person beneath me, afraid this was just a dream. The rain suddenly intensified. She bit her lip, trying to control herself. "Not so fast, Sincere," she whispered, her words dissolving into the heavy rainfall. The rain seemed determined to continue well into the night. When I woke up and saw the mess around us, I nearly fled in panic. Grace emerged from the kitchen, her eyes downcast. "Are you leaving?" she asked quietly. I stood frozen, unsure how to face her. Grace spoke softly. "It's okay. It was just 2 hours." Then she turned away, adding, "If you want to leave, go ahead." Yet I stayed, silently eating breakfast, though I still couldn't bring myself to meet her eyes. Every time I looked into them, I was reminded of the cruel words I had once said to her. I remained quiet, and Grace didn't say anything either. When she drove me to the studio before leaving, she said quietly, "I'm preparing dinner tonight. It might be troublesome, but it's fine if you don't want to come." I opened my mouth to speak, but Grace had already driven away. I couldn't refuse the returned Grace, nor did I want to. I thought even a momentary happiness would be enough. Having angered Victoria, her retaliation was swift. She blocked all my brand endorsements and declared that within a month I would come begging for reconciliation. I had anticipated Victoria wouldn't let me off easily, but I hadn't expected things to become this difficult. Victoria wanted me to submit. I was blacklisted across all media platforms and hit walls everywhere. Even roles I had successfully auditioned for were given to others. Even through all this, Hannah had no intention of leaving me. Looking at her, I said, "Things might be rough for a while." Hannah said nothing, just handed me a stack of materials. "Rough times always pass," she said. "Sincere, you won't stop here. No matter how far Victoria's influence reaches, she can't control everything." I took every role I could get, determined to prove myself through my abilities alone. Victoria couldn't trap me forever. Grace would always pick me up for dinner in the evening. She never mentioned the past, and this period felt as peaceful as when we first met. At night, she liked to gently bite my earlobe, repeatedly asking through our passionate moments, "Do you want me? Need me?" I found it hard to face her, but Grace was patient. Her fingers would trace downward slowly, like a lonely boat drifting on endless waves, unable to escape or resist the current. During this time after the divorce, Victoria still hadn't given Ethan any official status. Hannah showed me a video clip. In a dimly lit bar, Ethan confronted Victoria with reddened eyes. "You're divorced now. Why won't you give me a place by your side?" Victoria just laughed. "Who are you to ask? That position is taken." She played with the ring in her hand, absolutely certain. "Sincere will come back." I laughed coldly. Victoria was still waiting for me to return, so she watched my every move carefully. Whenever I got close to any opportunity, she would step in to ruin it. After several failed auditions, someone finally spoke up. "It's not that you don't meet our requirements, but Victoria, Sincere, why keep fighting with her? Just apologize, show some submission, and all these problems will solve themselves." I laughed. "Apologize? What for? Leaving Victoria is the one thing I'll never regret." As soon as I spoke, there was a sudden crash behind me. I turned curiously to look. The door slowly opened, revealing Victoria's face darkened with rage. Her gaze fixed on me as she smiled coldly. "Sincere, what did you just say?" Victoria had never imagined I would leave her. She'd been waiting for me to admit defeat and come begging back to her. But she had waited a long time without seeing what she wanted. Victoria felt something slipping from her control, so she intensified her tactics, trying to trap me completely. But unfortunately for her, she never got the result she wanted. That's why she showed up here, to hear for herself what I had to say. She hadn't expected to hear such a definitive rejection. Victoria was furious. Everyone tactfully left the room. As I tried to leave, she grabbed my wrist. Looking up at me, she asked, "Had enough of this rebellion?" I stared at her coldly. "Your games have thrown my family into chaos, and you've made quite a mess of things yourself." Victoria stroked my face with feigned tenderness. "Sincere, don't you understand yet? You can't leave me, just beg me." "What's this?" Victoria's voice suddenly rose sharply. Her eyes had fallen on my neck, and her entire face twisted with anger. I touched my neck, suddenly remembering last night's scene. Victoria gripped my fingers tighter, her voice trembling with rage. "Sincere, what is this?" "Let go of me," I said, pulling away from Victoria. She stumbled back a few steps, finally regaining her composure. She swallowed hard and said softly, "Explain it to me." "I'll listen." I straightened my clothes, looking at her with amusement. "What kind of relationship do we have that I need to explain anything to you?" "Sincere," Victoria's brow furrowed. "Don't call my name, and the current state of the Sincere family has nothing to do with me. Don't try to threaten me with family matters. As for your threats to destroy my career, do whatever you want. I'll face it all. But Victoria, you can't trap me." With each word I spoke, Victoria's face grew paler. She stared at me for a long while, disbelief growing in her eyes. "It's not because of Ethan. You didn't divorce me out of spite. From the very beginning, you truly wanted to leave me. Sincere, after all these years, did you never feel anything for me at all? I looked at her coldly. No, never. I made that very clear from the start. Victoria shook her head, laughing bitterly. Sincere, I don't believe you. Victoria began appearing constantly around me. Whenever she showed up, my auditions would inevitably fall through. She would just stand there, watching me impassively. Hannah nearly lost her temper several times, but I stopped her. Victoria is vindictive. Don't get on her bad side because of me. Victoria's appearances became so frequent that I instinctively started avoiding Grace, not wanting to drag her into this mess. Just then, I received a role as a vicious antagonist. It seemed strange to get any offers at this point. When I saw Ethan had been parachuted in as the male lead, I understood. He had joined the production intending to make things difficult for me. But what he hadn't counted on was that this role wasn't something he could coast through. Ethan had to reshoot one scene countless times, and the crew members kept sighing over his poor acting skills. Frustrated and angry, Ethan turned his gaze on me. There's something obstructing the atmosphere on set. How can anyone perform well? Since I found him equally irritating before leaving, I turned back to look at him and said, positions gained by clinging to others, remember to hold on tight. The fall from up there can be quite painful. Ethan was furious. I could imagine his growing anxiety as Victoria gradually lost interest in him. That's why he went to such lengths to target me. The evening sunset was beautiful. I looked up at it, thinking that for someone in my current position, just having the chance to be on set was precious enough. Taking each role seriously, being true to myself and my craft, that was enough. It was a month before I saw Grace again. By now, turning away when I saw her had become a habit, trying to protect her from getting involved. But this time, Grace was quick. She caught my wrist. Stop running away, she said. Her breath came out in white puffs in the cold air. Grace had been waiting outside the studio for who knows how long. Her fingers were ice cold. She looked up at me, her eyes full of sadness. I know you're avoiding me because of Victoria, she said. Her smile was strained. Sincere, if you don't want this anymore, I won't come looking for you. But, she looked at me. After all she's done to you, are you still choosing her? I stood frozen, looking at Grace's expression. A sharp pain shot through my chest. Years ago, she had worn the same expression standing before me, smiling as she said, Indeed, I was never meant to be the female lead. Back then, I had been too weak. Under pressure from my family, I had said cruel things to Grace, even claiming I had fallen in love with Victoria. I never expected Grace would misunderstand the situation like this now. Before I could speak, Grace suddenly let go of my hand. She sniffed and forced a light smile. I understand. You've always said I wasn't the female lead. Before she could finish, I pulled her into my arms and kissed her. Grace's body stiffened. My voice was hoarse as I spoke between kisses. Grace, I love you. I've always loved you. I never chose Victoria. I was afraid of dragging you down. Grace's eyelashes trembled slightly as she asked, Then now? Now I'm more afraid of losing you. Back then, I was too cowardly, and we missed so much time together. This time, I don't want to push away the person I love again. A slight smile tugged at Grace's lips. She wrapped her arms around my neck and deepened the kiss. Through the haze, I heard her unfinished sentence. Even if I'm not the female lead, I still love you. After that day, Victoria, who had been so persistently present, suddenly disappeared. I asked Grace, Was this your doing? Grace looked at me. I knew you wanted to handle things on your own, so I stayed out of it all this time. But this time, it wasn't about you. The Sincere family has monopolized resources for too long. It's time for the Shen family to take their share. So I gave Victoria a little warning. She'll be too busy dealing with company troubles to bother you for a while. Grace didn't like talking about Victoria. She quickly changed the subject. Our great actor Sincere needs to work hard. I know you tried your best for Blazing Flame. Don't be sad. Just keep moving forward. If you ever get tired, I'm always behind you. Grace was always like this, gentle and understanding. At that moment, I made up my mind that I couldn't become a stain on Grace's reputation. At least not as I was now. I wasn't worthy of standing beside her. Over the next few months, I threw myself completely into my work. I approached every role with absolute dedication. I wanted to prove myself through my own efforts, to become someone worthy of standing beside Grace. But later I learned that Grace's little warning to Victoria had actually been a crisis that kept her busy for months. Grace's return had been specifically targeted at the Liu family. Ethan's performance as the male lead was heavily criticized online for his poor acting skills. Meanwhile, I unexpectedly gained popularity for my portrayal of the villainous antagonist. My intense and stable, crazy performance went viral. My fan base exploded by millions. Hannah became overwhelmed with brand endorsement offers. On New Year's Eve, Hannah became unusually sentimental. She said she had witnessed my entire journey, from the hardest times when Victoria oppressed me so much that even drinking water felt difficult, to now. We had gritted our teeth and persevered through it all. Fortunately, everything was slowly getting better. Hannah said that when I proposed divorce during that live stream, she hadn't expected it at all, but she had supported me 100%. That's why no matter how difficult things got afterward, she never thought of leaving. I laughed, but Hannah told me to stop laughing and explain what was going on with Grace. I froze. Grace and I had been trying to keep a low profile, partly because I felt I wasn't yet worthy of standing beside her. I wanted to become more accomplished before that. But clearly we couldn't hide it from Hannah. Hannah said, "As long as you're happy, it's all good." Though Grace isn't an ordinary person, I heard Victoria's been asking around about you lately. Now that you're doing better and have such an outstanding partner, I'd love to see Victoria's face when she finds out. I smiled and told Hannah, "Don't mention that unlucky person on New Year's Eve." But Victoria was determined to be an unlucky presence until the end. She came looking for me. I was ready to leave immediately on New Year's Eve, not wanting her to affect my mood. But she repeatedly blocked my path. "Sincere, it's New Year's Eve now. It's been months. How long are you planning to keep this up with me?" she asked. I remained silent, hands in my pockets, coldly watching her. "I've actually been waiting for you to come back and apologize," Victoria frowned. "But you're so stubborn, refusing to bow your head and beg me. You've been gone so long, making decisions on your own." Victoria looked down at me. "I can overlook this. Sincere even now, if you say just one soft word to me. All your past actions, I can forgive them. Any resources or brands you want, I can give them to you. I just need you to lower your head to me once." I laughed. I thought this time apart might have changed her, but nothing had changed at all. "Victoria, I only have one thing to say to you now." Victoria leaned in closer. In a low voice I said, "Get lost." "Sincere." Victoria's face instantly darkened. "I've come to find you myself. How dare you still act this way? Why do you think I would ever come back?" I looked at her curiously. "From the very beginning, you and the Sincere family never treated me as a person. You gave resources to my family. They handed over a person. I was nothing but a commodity in your transaction. No one ever asked how I felt." Victoria interrupted me. "That's because I really liked you. I really wanted to be with you. But you never asked about my choice or showed me any respect," I said. "Victoria, your so-called love, like yourself, is too cheap." Victoria was about to say more when Grace suddenly appeared. "Oh, you still have time for romance here? Shouldn't you be checking on your company, it seems like? It won't last much longer." As soon as she spoke, Victoria's irritation visibly increased. Clearly, Grace had indeed caused her significant troubles during this period. She narrowed her eyes at Grace. "What are you doing here?" "Picking up my husband after work," Grace replied casually. "By the way, since you're so interested in other people's husbands, maybe you should look after your own company. It seems it won't survive much longer." Before Victoria could finish her words, Grace shut her out. The engagement news between Grace and me broke the next day. On that day, there was a heavy rain. When Victoria heard the news, she drove like a madwoman through the rain to find me. She stood at my door completely drenched and knocked gently. "Sincere, is the engagement news true? Are you angry with me? I pursued Ethan just to make you notice me. I just wanted you to show some emotion towards MME. I just wanted you to try to love Memem. I was wrong about how to love before. Sincere, can you give me one more chance?" Victoria poured her heart out, but I wasn't there to hear any of it. I was too tired by then. Victoria spoke a flood of words, but when the door opened, it was Grace's face that appeared. She leaned against the doorframe, smiling kindly. "Still eavesdropping, I see, but unfortunately my husband is tired and can't hear you." For once, Victoria didn't argue back. With reddened eyes, she softly pleaded, "Can I see him just once?" Before she could finish, Grace shut the door in her face. Our wedding was exceptionally grand. By coincidence, on that same day, the Sincere family was crumbling, and the Liu family went bankrupt. Victoria got into a car accident on her way to the wedding. When Grace heard the news, she smiled. How wonderful that all these good things happened on the same day. Grace remained in an excellent mood throughout the day. By evening, her mood had improved even further. She pressed close to my ear, her breath warm and intimate. Somehow, Grace had produced a silk ribbon, which she slowly wrapped around my wrist. Her voice was innocent, yet pleading, "Tonight, can we?" Seeing the ribbon in her hands, I suddenly felt uneasy. Grace had been getting more and more creative lately. Before I could nod, she suddenly deflated. "If you don't agree, that's fine. It's just that you promised on our wedding day, but it's okay if you don't want to." Grace cuddled up and kissed me sweetly. "It's really okay." How could I refuse? However, later on, the person who ended up tied up was her instead. Throughout the long night, she regretted it several times, but never had the chance to complete a single sentence. The banquet hall was filled with important figures from various circles. Hannah told me that Victoria had tried to find me one last time, even attempting to use our past to drive a wedge between Grace and me. Grace's response at that time was simply, during his absence, Sincere endured a lot of hardship. I don't blame him. I only blame myself for not having the power then. I didn't see through certain people's true nature. "Love is often about feeling indebted," she had said. "Victoria, a selfish person like you probably will never understand this.